And we're live. So here I am, here tonight with Irish Freedom Party candidate Diarmaid Conaráin. I'm not there. I tried beforehand not to mess that up, and I'm like, straight away, got it. So I'm delighted to be tonight now, joined by this fine candidate now, and indeed, what we have is a very important upcoming election, and I'm bringing people onto this channel to talk to them and to give them the airtime because I think that they absolutely do deserve it and they need it because you have a mega corporation that's not bringing these guys on, and these guys are doing fantastic numbers on social media. They're doing fantastically well at the doors, and again, they're facing some very stiff competition when it comes to people that have been in politics for a very long time, that have lots of money behind them. So I'm delighted to have you here tonight, Diarmaid. I really appreciate you being here tonight on a Friday night, because I know everybody likes to go out and do their thing on a Friday night. So I humbly would say I appreciate the fact that you've come in here tonight.
No, much appreciated, man. Cheers for having me on. I'm delighted to be here. And just like you said, like I'm the Irish Freedom Party candidate for the Dublin constituency in the European elections. And yeah, I've been at it for a few years now, but elections finally rolled around, and it was time to throw my hat into the ring, basically.
So where did that come from? Like, were you political beforehand? You know, what was it that drew you, I suppose, towards politics and being a candidate in an election?
Yeah, well, I think it was somewhere around the Lisbon and the Nice treaties. I started thinking, things are starting to go astray here. And to be brutally honest with you, at that point, I still believed in Sinn Féin. I still thought, the lads will look after it. That clearly didn't happen. And the more time went by, the more I realised I'd be brutally honest with you, I was waiting for other people to do it.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, like, this, I'm not the man to do it, but like, surely someone has to recognise this, someone has to step forward, some party has to speak up. And the more time went by and the more I realised that there really were few and far between the people who are willing to do it, I said to myself, right, well, I'm going to have to be one of them, because I understand what's happening too deeply to sit on the sidelines and just watch. I just can't do that.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think I like to hear that, and it's a great answer because, like, a lot of people, I feel personally that a lot of good people enter politics unwillingly, and the people that are entering it willingly, as such, I think, when you see people that are moving in and mooching around for political careers, like, they're not looking out for the best interests of Ireland or the Irish people. So I love that as an answer. Like, I just want to really highlight that because that's a really nice answer, and it's something, you get a lot of people that reach out to me and they're like, "Would you run Ninja?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm in the same boat as you." Or I'm like, "No, I'm sure someone else has to be doing it. Someone else has to want to pick up the mantle there, or the baton, or what you will." And it's a really solid answer. So where is the area that you're running in? So where would be the area that people could vote for you? If you could detail that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, well, for the current elections, for the 7th of June, I'm running for the European Parliament, which is all of Dublin. Everyone in Dublin can vote for me. But as a general rule of thumb, I would be in Dublin Bay North, which is it's just north of kind of the East Wall constituency, if that makes sense. It's just
Yeah.
across the water from there. And generally, that includes places like Coolock and down to Clontarf and out to Sutton and Raheny, Edenmore, Harmonstown, Kilbarrack, all these places. And if I was running in the general election, that's where it'd be, Dublin Bay North. But as I say, for the 7th of June, everyone in Dublin can vote for me, which is great.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's an interesting one that's upcoming, and then obviously as well, the Irish Freedom Party have many candidates that are running around the country as well, and that's a fantastic thing to see. And I like the linkage between the Irish Freedom Party and all the other parties as well, where you've got like the likes of Ireland First, and then you've also got then the Irish People, and you've also got then the National Party. So it's something we'll bring up later on in the stream, I suppose, but there's been a joint statement by the four parties there, and I think it's a really good thing to see these people and these parties uniting. So that's a very positive outcome, I think. When you're looking at the likes of policies and all that, that's an awful lot of things. A lot of people have a lot of questions when it comes to the policies. So what are the policies of the party as such?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a broad question. We've a lot of part. I suppose the best way to look at it is the big picture.
Yeah.
The big picture is that we want a sovereign Ireland. We would like to return to our own currency. We want to have control over everything from borders to trade to currency to housing policy. And you know, what has become obvious with the European Union, what started as a mutual trading bloc and an economic zone, has transformed into an unfiltered pursuit of power. And now 70% of Ireland's new legislation comes from the European Union. So I don't think it's unfair to say that Ireland has lost control of its destiny. And largely, you know, the Irish Freedom Party, we are prepared to pull the trigger if needs be and leave the European Union. But what we would like to see is it roll back to simply a trade union, because a trade union benefits everyone. But everything that came along with it that seemed good at the time just hasn't worked out for us, basically. And we are, I would largely call us a small state party. You know, we're not looking to interfere in people's lives and all, but we would exercise the power of the state where needed in things like limiting immigration or things like trying to push vulture funds out of home ownership. You know, things where we can blatantly see that an entirely free market has led to dire consequences, and now there needs to be legislation brought in. So we try to balance that. You know, the idea that the state should not interfere in people's lives, and we support things like free speech, but we also understand that the state is there to protect people to a large extent. And like I said, when the market starts to go wrong, or any other circumstances start to go wrong, the state, I believe, if the intentions are good, has the mandate to step in on the behalf of the people.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you when you're saying that we need to definitely change what's going on here in the EU, you know, and again, I like the fact that you're saying pull the trigger on leaving the EU. Like, that's something that I'm a big fan of myself. I would love to leave the EU because, you know, I get comments all the time that, you know, from people that are pro EU, and they'd say, well, we have nice roads now, and I'm like, are you serious? You've got 6-foot potholes that are going around the place. You know, it's a running gag that I like to say, but I mean, it's the truth. Like, there's potholes everywhere, and you know, someone was even saying not too long ago when there was a state visit, someone was filling in potholes with sand, and then they were like, why is this not generally done anyway? Do you know what I mean? Like, people's axles nearly coming off their cars, you know. But yeah, like, all jokes aside, when we're looking at the EU is a huge issue in my opinion. And like you said there, you know, 70% of our legislation coming down from a foreign entity, a faceless entity that is not a positive, and we should be sovereign. And it's another point that you made there that I quite like. The sovereignty is something that we need to hold dear. I mean, Micheál Martin doesn't think it's something that we should hold dear whatsoever. He thinks it's a backwards notion and a backwards way of looking at things, which is startling to say the very least, you know. So like, that's a very positive thing, I think, in terms of the party and what the party are looking to change and affect them. I get the point as well, and I see the point, and it's something we were talking about recently as well with various different people, was the idea of staying in the EU and trying to change it from within. Like, I understand that point, I do. But there's a lot of people out there, for example, that are not a fan of the EU, me self included. I'm not one of those people, but I do understand that point that you're making there with regards to that. So the EU is a big behemoth of a thing, and then, you know, when you're looking at that, then you've got some very experienced politicians that are also involved with the Irish Freedom Party, which is a huge win in my view. Like, what is the outlook for the Irish Party, or the Irish Freedom Party, I should say, when they go to the EU? Like, what would be the biggest things that you would like to change whilst there?
Well, essentially, what's looking increasingly likely, right? You know yourself, the European Parliament doesn't make law. The European Commission makes law, but the European Parliament elects the president and the commissioners and all. It's a very contrived system. But overall, when you go to the European Union, you can remain independent, but you have the choice of linking up with European parties, essentially. And I believe I'm correct in saying that the Irish Freedom Party would seek to ally ourselves with the ECR, which is the European Conservatives and Reformists. And these are people who, again, like ourselves, are... They see that the European Union has encroached far too much on their own nation's sovereignty. They feel the exact same way we do. And so, like the rest of us, you know, nobody disputes that trade is beneficial. Like the rest of us, they would be happy to return to that. But they're reformists. You know, they want to go backwards with the concept of the European Union, and backwards being a good thing in terms of reverting to the simple trading bloc. But so, again, when we get over there, the idea, again, unlike an independent in the Dáil, let's say, if I was an independent in the Dáil, I can actually submit legislation. Now, the government may shoot it down, but I can. An MEP parliament actually cannot submit a bill. So you
Okay.
have to ally with the bigger parties. And these parties will have a voice in the commission. And at that point, then you have real influence. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of like-minded people across Europe would agree with many of our goals. You know, we don't want hate speech. We don't want a Digital Services Act. We don't want emissions targets. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people would like to regain control of the monetary system. We don't need. Ireland has the cost of housing in Ireland has been driven up by the European Union because of their initiatives, let's say. Our
Yeah.
bear rating system, which is for new builds in Ireland, you have to have a minimum bear rating, which involves tens of thousands of euro worth of insulation. This is all aimed at decreasing emissions of oil heating, etc. But this
Yeah.
comes down from the top, like so much stuff, like I said, 70%. The Irish government have almost happily resigned themselves to little more than the local administrators of the European Union's decisions, so that's why we kind of said to ourselves, right, well, look, if that's where the choices are being made, then we need to head there. We need to have influence there. We need to be at the table. We need to try ally with people. And like I said, it's looking increasingly likely that I won't say it can be turned around, but it's looking increasingly likely like we can stop the flow at least.
Yeah, it
Because
looks
of
like a big change is coming. Yeah, I think that I hear what you're saying there with a big flow. Yeah, sorry, I know we cut across you there. Continue.
No, all good. I was just going to say, like I said, that the ideologues of the left may not have the run of the European Union for much longer. And the thing is, then at that point, we can repurpose this weapon, and we can really make them angry. We can bring in good laws across not just in Ireland, but across the Union. We can ban genetically modified foods and all that across the whole Union. We can ban vulture funds in home ownership across the whole Union. We're going to really piss some people off. Like if we manage to completely repurpose this, and instead of one nation going against the agenda and making sensible policy, there is a body of power that's going against the agenda for 27 nations. And I think that's where we'll start to see them want to tear the European Union apart before we ever get to it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And what you've got right now is you've got like a dramatic rise. Like I mean, you can see the media are sort of semi preparing for it, but they're very afraid of this rise of the right. I read an article today that said like there's far right are in Romania, and I was like, that's fascinating. Now that's happening over in that country, and then they're saying the same thing about Germany. They're like the AfD that's rising there. They're causing huge problems for the establishment, and then you've got Italy, for example, that's on the cusp of another one where they're going right. We've already went right wing, but it's not far enough to them. The French as well. There's also got there's a big thing that's going to happen with them. I think in their upcoming election. So there's a real change that's needed for people. And I'm not talking about the spoof that Sinn Féin are talking about. I mean, they're talking about change. They're more of the same, really. They're not going to do half of the things that you're saying that the Irish Freedom Party would like to do when they enter into like positions in the EU or indeed in the TD spaces, and I think that that's a highly appropriate thing to say because nobody in Sinn Féin is saying any of these things, and I think, for example, with the new parties that we have out here now, that there's going to be a lot of people that are currently skeptical and saying, well, hang on here for a second, we've heard this kind of stuff before and we're hoping that it's going to go right for us here. And I think with that, like you're saying, building relationships across the place, you're seeing the left are completely and utterly failing. The relationships between them are as strong as ever. But we do need to be building relationships with as many people as possible to go, look what's going on over there. Was also saying, yeah, that's great what's happening over there, but we need to be keeping an eye on our own place and our own sovereignty. So I like that. I think that's a good point then. You're talking about the Digital Services Act there and also the hate speech legislation, which are two things that are hugely controversial. So I've spoken at length about the hate speech legislation, and I think it's something that's utterly despicable. What it is, it's looking to take someone's opinion and their thoughts directly away. What would be your thoughts with regards to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's everything is pushing forward right now based on essentially the omnipresent narrative, and this is facilitated by a monopolized media and a political class who are entirely complicit, and an NGO class who is the government talking to itself. This, narratives are pushed out there like immigration is a benefit for our country, diversity is our strength, all this stuff, and it is largely unchallenged by anyone who has any sort of a platform or a voice. I believe, personally speaking, the hate speech legislation is designed to create an environment of fear on a ground level, in that every average person walking around would be afraid just even to take the piss out our
For sure.
black mate, because he might decide to get stroppy about it and fucking lodge a claim.
Yeah.
But more to the point, like Cathal Crowe said in the Dáil at one point, that he was talking about the Irish Freedom Party. And he said, they campaign on immigration and they campaign on transgender stuff and all, like. And he said this is hateful conduct, and when the hate speech bill comes in, that will be in the form of equality. So really, it is about the climate of fear on the ground level. But really, I do believe the hate speech bill is more of a tool of political censorship. And people like myself or yourself, the minute we say immigration has gone too far, or maybe diversity isn't such a great thing, maybe multiculturalism is actually shit, it will be deemed hate speech.
Yeah.
If I say a man can't go into a woman's changing room, it will be deemed hate speech. If I say the pride parades are getting out of hand, it will be deemed hate speech. So it's thought police, because eventually when you can't say a thing, you stop thinking it, and it is conditioning and indoctrination too, because it's putting thoughts off limit, which is just insane. I mean, at the end of the day, free speech really is just the instrument of which we express our thoughts. So if I'm not free to speak it, then I could sit there and think it on my own, but I can't say it to anyone. Like, so eventually it becomes redundant in the first place. It's an incredible encroachment into human rights, and it is inevitably and almost transparently motivated by the fact that they are entirely losing control of the narrative, and they feel like the best, all they have to try counter that is a blunt instrument, in the form of, like I said, hate speech bill, and then with Digital Services Act, they're going to try hunt down anonymous accounts. Like we seen in the Journal there recently, there was a report came out, and it was laughable. They said there was 150 online accounts who were targeting politicians, journalists, and media outlets with negative responses. Like,
Yeah, it's not hard.
where are we living? Like, negative responses, that's allowed. That's perfectly admissible. Like, what are we talking about?
For sure, absolutely, and like I mean, when you see it, I actually was stunned. Well, not, to be honest with you, I'm actually not surprised when I see stupid articles like that from the Journal. Excuse me, the Journal. I'm not surprised at all when they put out something really silly, because anytime to be honest with you, I actually read the Journal for a laugh, because I get a good giggle out of what they do say, because I'm like, nobody could be this stupid, and then they say things, I actually thought what was funny in the article was they started to criticize people on what they were posting, and I think there was like a spelling error that they were critical of. And then, like, literally a paragraph later, they had made 3 or 4 spelling errors themselves. And I was like, this is hilarious. Like, you know what I mean? It's the pot calling the kettle black here. Like, oh, that's probably racist now or something, is it? Like, to make that, and this is where these people are going. Like you have had people at the wheel that should never, ever be anywhere near the wheel. And the discourse that has caused the problems with the discourse that we have in this country has emanated from the media. You can't turn on the TV without being bombarded with some sort of woke signaling from these people, whether it be your entertainment or whether it be your TV shows. And now you've got the media then adding fuel to the fire of, like, did you see what 150 accounts said that we didn't like? It's like, are you for real? Like, I post, and I think that's a direct response to what people on this side of the fence are doing. Like, when we put stuff up and we're mocking them, like, these people are like, no, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll focus in on 1 or 2 people, and they'll try and insult that person as much as possible or try and get the eye on. But I love it. I think it's great. It's free advertisement. And surely there's enough people out now that don't want to be with the goofballs anymore. They want to join in on the side that's on the right hand side. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's it. And when I say right hand side, people know why I say that. I say that because, you're, I should say, persuaded not to call people evil. So that's why the left that I like to reference, for example, say you're persuaded not to do that. And that's with your thoughts not being free. And I mean, same with this platform. This platform is completely different than the spaces that the lads are doing on Twitter. Like, there's fellas that are doing wonderful spaces, and the things that get said on those, like, it's great to hear the freedom of expression, and I think it's very freeing for your mind to hear people say, yeah, I'm thinking this way or thinking that way, and you're like, this is brilliant, and that's my just viewpoint on the media. And it's lovely to hear that from yourself, that you're keeping an eye on the articles. And I think that's a good thing to reference for you guys also, because they like to go in on the Irish Freedom Party quite frequently. Like, I couldn't believe I seen another article that said that it was a problematic phrase, the phrase Ireland is full and Ireland belongs to the Irish and Irish lives matter. These articles are saying these things. Like, what's your thoughts on that when you see those things?
Yeah, well, like you said, at that point, it does become surreal. Like with the like with the 150 anonymous accounts the journal mentioned, and they said targeting blah 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 with negative responses. And I was like, we've really fallen down the ladder here. They used to say targeting with abuse and racism and violent threats. Now you're actually you're being honest. You're like, they're giving us negative responses and we want to shut that down. That is mental. Like I said, it is surreal, and it really does. For people our age, like, it's, we remember when it wasn't like this. That wasn't that long ago. So it really is surreal to believe that we've arrived at the point where, like, next year they might pass this bill and the Garda might knock on my door over a tweet. And there's certain things that I'm supposed to be not allowed to say, like, and really what it is as well, like, about like I said, the climate of fear and the political censorship. It's about introducing a new dogma too, and the dogma, there were different periods in Irish history or anybody's history where certain things were considered completely unacceptable, and they weren't necessarily illegal, but the dogma of the society, the morality of the society and all deemed it unapprovable, or whatever way you want to put it. So that's where we're working to now. When people say, like, the left really want to enforce that climate of where I'm not allowed to say to someone anymore, you're not Irish. It doesn't matter if it's factual. They don't. They start clutching their pearls, you know what I mean? And they're like, no, we can't. That's terrible. That's the worst thing you could ever say to anyone, or like, you're actually a man, mate, and I don't care if you're wearing a dress. That doesn't change anything, I suppose you could call it, like, they want to introduce the dogma of hyper tolerance, but it's not even, tolerance is one thing. At this point now, we've moved into submission. They want us to submit. They call, use my pronouns, bake my cake, submit.
Yeah, absolutely, and I fully agree with you. And I think, like, I think what people have realized now is the concessions that they have made over the years has started to add up. It started with bake the cake bigger, and then it was like, okay, right, we'll bake the cake there now. And I'm talking about things that went on worldwide, because it's important to focus on Ireland, and I mean, that's where my 100% focus goes on. But you have to bring in stuff that happens in the outside world, because Ireland is inevitably influenced by it. Like, there was no such thing as a culture war here in Ireland at all until, I'd say, would you even say 10 years ago? Like, I think it's ramped up even further within the last 5, really. I think the last 5 have really ramped it up. And look, I think the US election had a great effect on it, because people just decided to jump on one side or the other, and particularly one side with the media bombardment that they were hit with. And I always found that peculiar for the type of people that we are. I'm like, Johnny Mac, that's really weird that people are just jumping on the bandwagon there and sending memes, and then the memes all stop then once the blue fella gets into office. And I was like, that's weird, but it's the psyop, it's the constant psyop then for people, where they're hit with the, oh, by the way, it's the sniffles. Oh, by the way, we made you take stuff there for the sniffles, but we're going to let people into the country hand over fist there. We're not going to worry about their status. And now it's elevated to, we're not even going to worry about it if they have passports. And yeah, we'll put them into places that they can live. Okay, we're not even going to worry about that now. Now they're intense on encroaching on your gaff. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we've taken so
Yeah.
many steps back, and when you see an article in the paper that's like, I saw one there not too long ago. No, not the paper. When I say the paper, I don't buy the paper. I wouldn't fund them or anything. But when I see online articles that's like locals ran these fellas in tents from their areas, and I'm looking at them like, well, I'm sure you wouldn't be delighted the person who's writing this article if someone pitched a tent outside your gaff. You know what I mean? And was
Yeah.
urinating all over the place and causing obstructions and that. And that's where we're at right now. Like, I mean, we're at a place where the media accept us to constantly face concessions and like poke us in the eye going, you better accept them. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there's kind of three things there I want to address. One of them is that, like you said, we really have imported the culture wars from the United States. Like, and when you see people like Ebun Joseph, you know Ebun Joseph, yeah.
Yeah. I've done. I think I've done a
Oh,
video on that thing. Yeah, yeah.
but when people like her come here and start talking about systemic privilege, or white privilege and all this kind of stuff, it's like you know nothing about Ireland. You have clearly taken the script that was written in the US and tried to apply it here because you just see us as a white country. You don't know anything about us,
For sure.
and that's really. You could argue that. I mean, a lot of people would know that, or would agree, I suppose, that kind of a lot of times when something starts in the US, it's kind of heading here. It's not 15, 20 years later. Like, even it started probably around feminism and all that kind of stuff, but like it's heading here. But like you said, the cycle has sped up so much now, and transgenderism is there one week and it's here next week.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is down to technology, and the internet. And the fact as well, I think they're actually afraid of the internet. They're afraid of the fact that people like yourself and myself are online speaking the truth. And this is why they want the Digital Services Act. So I feel like they have felt like they need to speed up before people like me and you actually get ahead of them and convince the crowd that this is all mania. You know what I mean? So they're trying to push things as fast as possible, I think. Now,
For sure.
to the, like you said, we started with them coming here and we said immigration was great, and they helped build houses and all. And now we're putting them in commercial buildings and now they're on tents or in tents. So I think, and I try to say this to people, we all know the Irish government, people like Simon Coveney, all, they have population goals. They want Ireland's population, mostly foreign born, to rise by at least 1 million. People have talked about Ireland becoming an island of 10 million people. So we know that they have these goals. And we know that part of the reason for this is because we have an income and pension crisis and a declining birth rate. So the pyramid, the broken economic pyramid model is about to fall apart, right? So, but also we have a housing crisis and a cost of living crisis. So any intelligent immigrant who would actually benefit the country looks and is like, I'm not going to Ireland. Like, the cost of housing is crazy. I'll go to Canada. I'll go to Australia. We're no longer actually a good bet for genuine, like, working immigrants. So in my opinion, the state has resorted to asylum seeking because it's the only way to continually flood people in who just don't care that there aren't houses or work here for them, because they're not, they're simply trying to escape poverty and they've been offered a good deal. They told that the Irish government gives you free money. And to them, this is insane. It's very, very different to a French or a German person or whoever it might be saying, maybe I could do well if I went and worked for Google in Ireland or Intel or whoever, They now realize that the earning power versus the cost of living is just not worth it. So we're not getting them anymore. And I believe, like I said, that basically they're turning to asylum seekers to increase the population, and they will further justify this when they start to talk about, they're already starting to talk about climate refugees.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see this. What this does is this reshapes the world. Yeah, but even it'll reshape the map in terms of safe and unsafe countries.
Yes,
Nigeria. Nigeria could be a safe country, but all of a sudden you say it's suffering from climate change, and now it's not a safe country, and we have to accept asylum. Things like this, like.
That's a brilliant point, though, Diarmaid, and I just want to hold you on that one there, because that's something that they're peppering into the media right now. And what we notice, and you very astutely pointed out, like, there's a pattern recognition that happens, And when you see them start to drop little ideas like that in, and they're going hell for leather recently as well about the climate stuff, and now they're starting to say climate refugees, you're like, oh, now I know what you're doing. And then you're looking at, for example, I talk about frequently on the show, I don't know whether you subscribe to it or anything like that, but the geoengineering that goes on, and it has been found out in America, for example, with states banning it. They're going as far as banning it there in states in America, and Dubai recently had an incident where they said it was caused by geoengineering. So like, now you know that they're able to do these things. And it was amazing to me. I spoke with someone on Twitter recently. There was someone, I think, from a political party that was cribbing about climate change. And I said, well, how come you don't talk about geoengineering? And someone actually had the gall to write back to me and was like, well, the climate crisis is something that's very real. And I'm like, you thinking that the geoengineering that's going on isn't a crisis? You don't think that that's an issue? You think that throwing different chemicals into the atmosphere and seeing what happens is a good thing? Like, this is the type of people that you're sometimes dealing with online, and that's absolutely fine. But like, to not even acknowledge the point that was like, hey, geoengineering could be a huge problem, and it has shown to be a huge problem in various different places. Like, what are we really doing here? That sort of way. And the as you said, the reshaping of the world is something that they're looking to do, and they're looking to do it through any means necessary. And it's a very astute point that you're making there, and I like it. And what you're talking about then is the reshaping it through migration, through the pensions, and this is another thing that they like to hark on about. But like, when you were looking at the decline in birth rate, like, I'm sure you're thinking the same way I do. I don't know whether you are or not, but like, when these people jumped around for joy when they did this repeal the eighth nonsense, I mean, it was a horrific day for Ireland. And I think that that's factored into this whole narrative that they can push, which is, oh no, we need to bring people in because we have thousands there that are no longer with us, that should be with us. Like, I seen an article today and they were actually jumping for joy at the lack of young mothers now. And I was looking at it and I was like, this is crazy. It's crazy to think that they were saying, I think it was 702, they would have had young mothers, and now they don't have any more now. And they were, in a way, kind of congratulating themselves, saying, look what we got done there with the repeal of the eight. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a sick situation we're living in here now.
And that's I think, like I said, that celebratory attitude, I think that comes from the fact that in their minds, they're such ideologues and they're such fanatics that in their minds, like, a woman shouldn't be at home raising kids. She should be out working. So in their minds, when they say there aren't young mothers, they say, great, they're career women now. And all these people who say they advocate for women, but all they ever advocate for is free childcare because they want the woman still stuck in her job. That's, in my opinion, not advocating for women,
Yeah.
And like my own sister, I saw firsthand, like, my sister had a good job. She was a manager of a jeweler shop, like, and as you can imagine, probably with the jewelers, like, it's crazy around Christmas and that. She'd be working on Christmas Eve right up to 8 p.m., and then she had kids. And she started to realize that she was missing very important times just for a job.
Sure.
And she was, she was placed in that situation that modern women are being placed into, where she actually had quite a good job. And if she walks away, she can't just walk back to it, But at the same time, she knew, she was like, look, all the money in the world isn't worth what I'm missing.
Absolutely.
Now she did the right thing, like, and she walked away. But again, society had, again, we nearly created a new dogma, and society had convinced her that, what she was doing was the right thing to do, essentially, you know what I mean? And you've worked your way up now, and it'd be a shame to walk away and all, like, and then there's this natural thing of what women have been doing since humanity began, which is raising their children, like, and society is telling her not to do that. Not directly, but indirectly, and even I've seen, like, again, when we talk about stuff that's surreal, like, every now and again you come across articles like, why I've decided I'm not having kids, and they're celebrating it, It's all aimed at, and it's very hard when you look at that, and then you look at abortion and the demographic trends, and then you look at their fanaticism for immigration, and then people say, like, there's a replacement migration is going on, and people say it isn't. You're like, well, what show are you watching, man?
Yeah.
Like, could this not be more obvious?
Absolutely, and like you're saying there, like the workforce, like I mean, like the whole thing with the workforce was they wanted to double the amount of people that were taxable, so as that just funds the financial ineptitude that we see, the frivolous spending that we see. Like I mean, there's no repercussions for these people that are in governments when they spunk away €1 million. Do you know what I mean? Like or a billion even. Like I mean, there's just nothing that holds them back. Money that's belonging to us that's been wasted, and I mean, like when you look at it very seriously like that, the childcare aspect and people that go to work looking for childcare. And someone saying it there in the chat, I've seen it a couple of times, and they're saying, you're working for someone else that you don't know to raise your kids. Like it's a crazy thing. And like I've sat down with many a woman, and to be fair to them, like a lot of them are very reasonable when you explain that to them like that. You say, listen, you're going to work so someone else is minding your kid, and they look at you and they go, oh yeah, that makes, I hear what you're saying now, it makes sense. And then there's the others then, like you said, that want to kind of have the child that's nearly an accessory or something like that, like a handbag or something. Here's the kid and all that, and you're going, okay, well that's what you're doing there, and I'd rather the kid be around than not be around. But like
Mm,
that career mindset to me is, if it's for some people, okay, fair enough. But it's been drubbed into women overall that that's absolutely what they should be doing on the whole, and through entertainment, like I said. And like you're seeing it through the articles as well. Like the articles are pushing it heavily, and we know that media tends to influence various different people and in different ways. And of course then this whole idea of like you shouldn't have kids and all this, like I've been talking to people and they've said they won't have kids because they're too expensive. And I'm looking at them like, wow. But you'll have no problem going out and blowing €500 on a weekend, going down to the pub. You know what I mean? Like it's quite an interesting dynamic, I
yeah.
suppose, and it's very hypocritical in my view. But look, each to their own is what I say. But I keep saying to my mates, like I've a couple of mates that are like, no, I'm not having kids, and I'm like, you're insane. You should have about six. I'd be saying to them. They're looking at you like, what?
Yeah.
They're a couple of years behind us when this thing is going on. I don't think some people will see the woods from the trees until it's like 80% foreign individual in this country. Do you know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah.
encroaching on about 20% now, according to the official figures, whether you want to believe them or not. But here in Dublin, like you can attest to that as a Dubliner, like you're looking around and you go to the city centre, like you're not seeing very many, familiar faces, and certainly not hearing an awful lot of Irish accents either.
Yeah. And like you said, even that 20% figure is it's the people who are living in the state who are foreign born, which means as far as I can, if the wording is accurate, then it doesn't count any of their kids who might have been born here.
Yeah,
So
that's
20%, yeah, 20 could be 25, it could be 30, and we all know that they wouldn't tell us. If it was 32% or something, they wouldn't like to tell us that. Um, but and like you said, like it's very hard to say that everything is not related when you see the overlapping of things. It's like we know we've got a declining demographic. We're still trying to push abortion further. We're still trying to push this boss bitch attitude further.
yeah,
And we're still trying to push immigration further. Like you can't. I refuse to believe, and I used to say this about housing. You say I refuse to believe people who've been in the doll for years, people who are career politicians. There's 100 and what 56 or 66. There's over 150 of them in there.
too
I
many.
refuse. Too many. Yeah. I refuse to believe that not one of them can understand that you cannot build 30,000 houses a year and bring 100,000 people a year. I refuse to believe that they don't understand that, which leads you to the surreal and darker conclusion, which is that they know, they don't care, and the motivation for that is anyone's guess. You could call it trying to solve the pension crisis. You could call it whatever you want to. The the final answer doesn't matter. It's the recognition of the fact that they are doing it, and the fact that they are doing it means it is happening, and we do need to put a stop to it. But ultimately, like, I think I've totally lost my train of thought there now.
No, absolutely. And I mean, look, I mean, it's something that you're hitting the point and hitting the nail on the head with. When you have so many people that are coming into the country and they're actively replacing you, this is a very, very serious topic. And I mean, like that, as you're saying, you've got so many people coming into the place, and at the same time, then they're telling you there isn't any space. Like you were saying there, the 30,000 homes that are built a year, it's not enough. It's not enough for our own population. And then again, you're bringing more in, then, and then you've got what's happening in the areas, and people are very familiar with what's going on. Like I seen Paul Fitzsimons there earlier on posted the video up on Twitter, and he was talking about the Haps game. Like there's houses that are available, sure, but what's happening is then they're being bought up and then they're being redistributed to people that are not of this country. And I mean, that's a claim that's starting to gain an awful lot of ground. And there's various different people that are out there that are saying the same. They're like, I'm on, the housing is 10, 5, maybe 5, 10 years, and they're going to still have nowhere. And yet there's people walking into the place and they're getting handed the house, the keys to it. It's something we were talking about on a Spaces the other night. And what I find absurd is the fact that there are people that have actually come into the place and are able to avail a house and say in a brand new build estate. And people have gone to the banks and they've gotten exceptions and they've spent an awful lot of money and are going to be spending an awful lot of money. And you've got this policy. This is a policy I think should be absolutely scrapped or should be completely changed whatsoever. Or it's in its entirety, in my opinion. But this idea of like, is a 10 to 20% of a new build is social housing. Like that is crazy to me, that you could spend upwards of 400,000 on a house and then behind you is someone that hasn't worked a day in their lives. That's crazy to me. No disrespect to anybody that's out there that's unable to get a job or anything like that. I hear you on that one, and I know it's difficult for people out there, but like I'm talking about people that are just waltzing into the place and are going, I'll have the house there, and you're going, that's 400 grand there into the hands, like more or less, and they're not paying for it. It's crazy to me. And we're subsidizing that through the money that's been taken off us,
Yeah, and it is. I mean, like it's because in some people's mind, a house is a house, and they don't, what I mean? As they say, location, that's everything. And it's hard to compare. The better way to compare it nearly is to say that, like, the guy who was working and was earning maybe 60 grand a year or whatever and has a nice mark out in the drive-in, and then the guy who was on the dole and the government gave him a nice mark out in the drive-in. I mean, unfortunately, there are largely tiers in society. There is earning capacity, and then there are, for every supply and demand, the demand will be met. And people who have more money will look for things that are more expensive, and they'll go out into nicer areas, and there'll be private schools, and we all know this. And like you said, if you haven't accumulated that asset yourself, then like you said, it is very unfair to be placed beside someone who has accumulated that themselves at great cost to themselves. You know what I mean? Nobody who buys a house like had an easy run at it, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I do think it sounds classist, and you could call it segregation to an extent, but there has to be a reality. And the point being that, like you said, why would you pay that amount of money to just, to have anyone beside you who might be up to anything in their lives? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It causes a lot of hassle for you and the area as a whole. It's something that I liked what Paul Fitzsimons put up earlier on. I thought it was a very strong point, and I think a lot of people feel that way now where they're going. And like you said, there, you're a young couple and you're buying a house, and then you look out the door and you're like, hang on, there's people hanging, and these people are only just hanging around, but they're hanging around the area all day, every day at nothing, or they're drinking or whatever it might be, and you're going, so what's this about? I think I said it on the Spaces there the other night, and I was like, I liked what they did in America, where they had like, you don't want to work, you don't want to do it, and you're out to the Bronx there, and everyone was sort of out to the Bronx. And you can all just, do whatever you're doing out there. And like, they knew what the scope was when it came to police. And they're like, you're going to have to send loads of people out there. But other places, uptown and all like that was fine, And like, people might, like, again, you might say like, oh, that's negative or whatever it might be. But like, that's the reality of the situation. Nobody wants someone living beside them that's up to no good. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that everyone that finds themselves that have unemployment or anything like that are falling on hard times. I mean, it can happen to anybody at any time nowadays, especially if you have differing opinions to the regime. So, like, I get that there's good people that are out there, but you've got an awful lot of people and councils, for example, even in themselves. Like, this is something that I heard about not too long ago, was that there was people bidding on a house, and allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly on this one, the council purchased the house for an obscene amount of money, again, allegedly, and then people moved into it that were not of this nation. They weren't from Ireland. Like, how can you explain that to people at all? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, like I said, that's nearly probably the first point I should have led with, is that, like, it's the you wouldn't even call it unfair. It's the totally warranted resentment. If you're paying whatever you're paying maybe like 1,800 quid, whatever it is for your mortgage a month. And these people were just plopped in beside you, like, and they're probably, on the dole or whatever. You know what I mean? Now, again, like you said, that's not to speak down on anybody. Everybody can end up there. We really can. But the point being that if you're breaking your arse, you shouldn't, people who don't lift a finger should not be sat beside you on the economic ladder. And housing is an economic ladder, where you end up, all of this, like it all affects your standard of living and all, you know what I mean? And it all is determinism to a large extent, you know what I mean? Like doctors and nurses all end up living together because they can all afford to end up living, they end up out in Donnybrook or whatever, you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
like you said, it wouldn't be right for someone who's never worked a day in their life to be plopped in beside them. It's just not, like.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I mean, like, especially when you've accrued, as you said, these important services that, as you said, that you need to be having houses and that. And I mean, look, it's a big talking point as well with people when they're talking about, like, if they're making apartments or anything like that, if they're doing anything for nurses or doctors, for example, close to the hospitals, it's a good thing, but that's not what they're looking to do. They're looking to go, oh, we're just going to open this up free range then to divulge our funds, like you were mentioning earlier on there. Just moving on to another topic there, like you said, you've been out canvassing and you've been out doing leaflets. How have they been going so far? Because I feel like we could talk all night about the culture wars that's going on here in this country and in the wider world, but I'd love to know how personally the canvassing is going for you.
To be brutally honest with you, man, it's been far better than I probably expected. I've genuinely received zero abuse so far, and I'll be honest with you, I thought I would receive some, and more to that, I thought people would be a lot colder than they are. We're actually getting quite a warm reception, like, and a lot of people are. It starts with, some people have told me, like, listen, I don't want any leaflets, and I say, like, listen, I'm the opposition, I'm not the government. They say, who are you, Sinn Féin? It's like, no, I'm not Sinn Féin, I'm the real opposition. Who are you? And you perk their interest a bit. Genuinely, people are. Now, again, I always preface it with this: is that I have targeted the areas. I'm not out in Holt canvassing because they probably wouldn't be my biggest fans. Let's just say, I'm in places, like Edenmore and Harmonstown and Diarmaid and Clondalkin and Blanchardstown and stuff like that. Like, so. It's I think I'm hitting the right areas, and these were people who were never particularly happy with the government, but they were probably largely Sinn Féin voters. But now they've realised the jig is up on that, and Sinn Féin are the government, but with a border poll. They offer nothing else. If you took away United Ireland, genuinely, what do Sinn Féin offer as a party? Nobody has an answer, because they offer nothing. That is the one thing that set them apart. But people are very angry with that now. And genuinely, it seems like immigration. Now, maybe it's because I'm pushing the point too, but genuinely, it does seem like immigration is what's coming up most, and cost of housing, and then just like basically asylum seekers too. They're. I think most people see, immigrants who come here to work legally, etc., are different than Ukrainians who have been stuffed into hotels. And I think that more so than anything maybe has highlighted for people what an absolute catastrophe and a train wreck that the government are running, because it's just the complete incompetence and inadequacy of it is just phenomenal. You know what I mean? They're butchering the tourism industry. Like, they brought far too many people here where they know well we've had a decades-long housing crisis. Every winter we have a healthcare and a trolley crisis, and people are told, don't come here unless you're really sick. We know all of this. You can't get a school place, you can't get a GP. We know all of this, and they still just left an open door. And I think this has really, I had hoped that COVID would have really woke people up, but I think this really made people realise these lads are chancers. They either don't know or they really are corrupt. And like I said, to be honest with you, obviously the mainstream media and the establishment has given us nothing, no attention, and we knew that was coming anyway. But to be honest with you, the canvassing has gone really well, and the reception has been overwhelmingly positive, which shocked me, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it. Now, I've had some posters vandalized and that stuff too. Like, so it hasn't been an entire dream scenario, let's say, but genuinely the canvassing it has been very encouraging, I'd say.
That's brilliant to hear. And like you're saying about the posters, to be honest with you, like when I'm looking at that and I'm seeing the vandalization of the posters, I'm like, well, you guys are obviously frightening the left, which is very important. And indeed, some of the screwballs that you have out there that are doing things like that. But what it's also saying to me is that these people are actually initiating this situation, and that, like, what day is it tomorrow? It's the 4th of June. You know what awareness month it is. I'm not going to say too much, but a lot of people like to talk about the groom, shall we say, the groom. They want to talk about that. So, like, these people will be the same people that'll howl about people being disrespectful to a multicolored flag, and this is a very interesting point that you're making here. When there's people that are out there that are happy to vandalize these posters, like, we're at that point in time now in society where people are super divided on things, and it's only going to get more divided, because I keep saying it to people, like, sure, you can have a conversation with people that are on the radical left and all of that sort of stuff, but you're talking to the television. You're never ever going to bring them back on side. They're past the point of no return, and they're not ever going to come back. And even when they do start to realize what's going on, they're still not going to admit and join the team. It's a very interesting thing that I saw last night, even on Satirical Soldiers spaces that he held last night. There was people that were on that I'm like, you're never ever going to convince these people to be anything other than what they are. And that's fair enough, like, in my opinion, because I've conceded that a long time ago to understand they're not worth talking to. Now, he does it for the humor, and it's a very humorous show, I will say that. But after a while, you're like, my God, these people will never come around at all. But the vandalization of posters, to me, in my opinion, is a positive message for you guys, and it's only going to create a Streisand effect to me, because people generally should see that and they're like, who are these people attacking? They're attacking these guys, and they're attacking these guys, and they're doing this, and they're stopping these guys from coming onto the media. I think that's a huge win for you guys, and it's something that you should be bolstering. Like, we've entered the WWE phase, the attitude era of politics right now. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you're into wrestling or anything like that, but it's
I get the reference. Yeah.
But it's the attitude era of it now, and people want to hear these things. They want to hear, like, Ireland is full. They want to see that Ireland is for the Irish. They want people with stones to be going and running an election. And I know there's women as well involved too, and we've got a lot of based great women that are out there. There's some in the chat there saying that they live in Howth and Santry and that you should be coming out to them anyway. So you've got a couple of people.
My bad.
You've got a couple of people in the chat that are like, definitely come out, they'd love to see it. So it's a very good thing that that's great to see that there's even hunger from people that are in Howth and Santry to see you guys out there, because I think some people are not sure about what's going on and they think it's more of the same. And when they get a knock on the door from yourselves, or whether it be Ireland First or the Irish people, or whether it be the National Party, like, they're looking and they're going, here's someone that actually represents what I'm thinking. Because I think one thing that us Irish are really bad at, and I say this, with a humble hat in hand here, like, when it comes to face-to-face criticism for people that have really done us no good over decades, the Irish are some of the worst for it, and it's beautiful to finally see people at doors, and the amount of video recordings that have happened. The beauty of the internet is these things have been shared, where you're seeing, councillors and TDs and their parents even that are at doors that are critical of the people that live in the houses on, like, ring cameras. The ring cameras have been diabolical for these people now this year, with the smartphones, they've been really bad for them. And I think, like, even those conversations that are being had by people outside people's front doors that are unknown about, like, it's letting you in on what these people think. And you made a point earlier on, whether these people are stupid or whether they're corrupt. I think it's a bit of both, because, I mean, you'd have to be insanely corrupt to do what they're doing, but also insanely stupid to do it and push it as far as they pushed it. I look at, say, Ron DeSantis in America, and I mean, he has his faults as well also, but, like, he's doing a lot of good things for the state of Florida. You see other politicians that are around the world that are viewing to do the same thing, and now we've got a possibility, and I do think it's something that Rowan Croft said when he was on here not too long ago. Like, we have a massive chance. I mean, Diarmaid and myself now have been talking for nearly an hour now. I don't think we can explain to you enough how important this election is, and that make sure you turn out with everybody that you know next week, and that they vote for people that are in parties that are going to look out for the Irish, that are standing up for the Irish. It's hugely important, and I want to put a lot of emphasis on that. And I think we have during the show, but I wanted to make it really clear when it comes to that. The canvassing has obviously been going well, which I'm delighted to hear about that. And like you said, I think it's a funny thing to hear when you say that you were expecting a bit of abuse, but I think, like, how could you disagree with Ireland is for the Irish, Ireland belongs to the Irish, and Ireland is full, and the policies that you guys have like laid out? It's a very, very important thing that people are now paying attention to. Like, I think people are starting to pay attention more now to politics than they are sports.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the mainstream media does its utmost to confirm this lie, but the lie being that we are the minority and the far left are actually 92% of the population. When you get out there canvassing, you find out that it is totally inverse to that, because like I said, I have not the two, like, you wouldn't even call them a bad experience. Like, we had one woman who was like, I'll be voting for Sinn Féin, Mary Lou will put you all in your place. Like, that was it. I had one guy answer the door and say to me, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't want anyone's leaflet. And I said, look, mate, I completely get how you feel. I said, that's why I'm here. And he says, what do you mean that's why you're here? I said, I feel the exact same. I said, that's why I'm in a new party trying to change things. I said, because I'm dog tired of all this shit. So you're not Sinn Féin? I was like, no, we're not Sinn Féin. I won't go through the whole conversation. But by the end of it, he says to me, right, go on, give us a leaflet. So, we broke through a bit there, like, and that's the problem. A lot of people are disillusioned. And back to what you were saying about, we have to push people, the importance of this election now. I keep telling people that in 2019, in the Dublin constituency for the European elections, the voter turnout, I believe, was 43%. It was about 400,000 people out of a potential electorate of, I think, about 880,000 people.
Wow.
If the other half turns up on the 7th of June, it's all over.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that half is largely the establishment half. These are the Fianna Fáil, the Fine Gael voters. They vote Sinn Féin, and then you've the dribblings who vote for Social Democrats, Labour, People Before Profit, whoever. But like I said, if that 57% had any party loyalty whatsoever, they would be turning up to try support their party and get them into power and make sure they get government or whatever. So that other half of the population is disillusioned. They don't care. They have no loyalty whatsoever. And to me, that's our target. I'm not trying to strip away Sinn Féin voters. They love Sinn Féin. We have half the population who are just done with the political system, and they need representation, and they're not going to turn up until they have it, because they're tired of ticking the boxes for the same old people who tell them the same old lies and then don't deliver like everyone else who came before them. But like Absolutely. I said, it's hugely important, because there is, people think there is no political route for this. Half the population, if the other half turns up, it's over, and that's what we need to be pushing for.
It's something that I noted even when the referendum was on. Like, I remember I was in a place and there happened to be a radio on, and it was RTE, of course, and they had Brian Dobson, and you're listening to the haughty shit talk that they're doing there. And, we've only had like a 12% turnout so far. And I was like, it's 10:30 in the morning. Like, there's people that have to finish work here now, and like, that's the position that they're in. They're gonna go up after 5 o'clock. And to be honest with you, I was only raging that I couldn't record the conversation that he had, because I was just like, the way he's talking as if people have no lives or they have nothing to do. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, we've only gotten at 12, but also, I think, personally speaking now, I mean, the guy himself might disagree, but I thought it was a really callous thing to do, because it was almost like as if it was saying it was only been a 12% turnout. Don't bother coming out at all. There's no one. It's like, if you're invited to a party or something like that and you're going, are you going to that? And then they go, I'm thinking about it. And then someone else is going, I'm definitely not going to that. And then you don't go, but then you hear about it later on down the road, and you was like, oh, that party was absolutely hopping. And you're going,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it struck me like that, and I was saying to myself, like, these are the dirty little tricks that they're trying on airwaves and subliminal messages. Like, I've had a lot of people reach out to me that are like, I used to listen to the radio on the way to work and I don't anymore. They might listen to this podcast or they might listen to Spotify or whatever it might be. They're just like, I'm tuning out all these voices now. And I was like, well, that's a very effective thing to do. And like you're saying, the half of the population that are out there that are definitely there now, because that referendum was a huge, I think, the way I would word it would be, it was like a huge counter strike to the narrative, to the government, to the NGOs. The whole apparatus didn't know what to do, and it took a massive wobble after that, So I do think another one's on the way. I do think another shock is on the way for them next week. And like you're saying, Sinn Féin, I think I just wanted to point this out, and this is just myself speaking. These are just my opinions when I'm coming across these things. There's been a lot of discourse online when it comes to Sinn Féin and people saying, like, singing chants of Sinn Féin are traitors. And there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that, and they're like, well, hang on, this is the team that looked like they could win. And you're going, no, hang on. The reason why people are singing Sinn Féin are traitors and they're viewing them that way is because they have involved themselves in the likes of the Health Preservation Act, which was to delimit your rights, civil liberties and freedoms, whilst at the same time pushing for open borders. And also then they're also looking to push forward the hate speech legislation. So they are not working for your best interests. Not only that then, but these people have then decided in Sinn Féin to call you far right for noticing what's going on around you. They have hit all of the things, all of the points that these other parties have done, and that's why they're being called traitors, because people previously viewed them as their nationalist and patriotic voice and Republican voice in the chambers of the Dáil. And now that is no longer the case. So that is why, and it's why it's effective, I think, that people are singing that, because everyone knows that, everyone knows that Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin now added into the group, but the Social Democrats, the Green Party, all of them unanimously Labour, a uniparty if ever there was one. So now is time for actual real change, which is parties that haven't been in the Dáil and haven't been in Europe beforehand, and give them a go, is what I would say, And before, it was a really interesting point that, 3 or 4 years ago, this seemed to be kind of fairly, what's the word I want to use, kind of fringe. But now they're actually very seriously worried about you guys. They're very seriously worried about the party, and I think that's a good thing. When they're making up stories and they're making up claims and they're trying to do things that are slanderous, in my humble opinion, towards the party, I'm like, well, you're making a real wave here. The establishment are afraid because they don't do these things for no reason. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's the same with back to Cathal Crowe bringing us up in the Dáil in regards to the hate speech legislation, and now Sinn Féin taking notice. I think, was it Gandhi who said it? You know what I mean? First they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win. You know what I mean? I think we are firmly past the being ignored stage. I think there was a long point there where people were like, listen, just like they're a small party. And this was with regards to all of us, just not specifically the IFP. But they're small groups. Like, the less air we give them, the better. Just don't even mention them ever. Don't bring them up at all. I think they've realised that didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying. It's back to earlier, even the stuff with feminism and the conditioning and children and all that. And even the voting, when you said 12.5% turned up, like, don't bother, and it was the same. Is it it's a fringe group of racists. Don't agree with them. They're lunatics. They're the outcasts of society. When the truth is, we're the majority. Most polls now are showing that we are the majority. But like I said, I think Sinn Féin basically have moved from trying to ignore us and assuming that they could repeat the 2020 general election success, and now realising that, like, we all collectively, not just the IFP, are a massive threat to them. Because the funny thing is, like I said, if you take away the United Ireland, what are Sinn Féin? They're a nothing party. But the thing is, they used to hold that monopoly. You never heard Labour talk about that. You never heard Social Democrats talk about that. But every nationalist party that exists is a United Ireland party. So that's, I think they're really in fear, not just of the fact that, like, we are becoming the populist movement against everyone, whether it's Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, whoever. But I think they thought that they still held the crown of opposition, and they still had undying support of the nationalist vote, who would, vote for them forever, just in pursuit of a united Ireland. But now there are other options for a united Ireland. Some of these people have way better policies. Some of them don't want to give puberty blockers to kids. Some of them, like Sinn Féin used to be largely anti-EU, and they've changed their tone on that now. Like, they've changed their tone on everything. The only thing they've been consistent on is the video put out by Ben Scallon, where it shows you that for the last 20 years they've been open border fanatics. That's the only thing they didn't change about it. Yeah, and actually, they nearly even did then when they said, oh no, because they wanted to appeal to all of us, the voters that we're taking, they said, oh, well, we are against the EU Migration Pact. Like, everybody knows that that's vacant. Sinn Féin have no commitment whatsoever. And the point is, I don't want leaders who I have to tell how to lead me. That's your job. Do you know what I mean? If I have to tell you what to do, then why the fuck am I in the sea? Do you know what I mean? Why are you there? Like, so I don't need people, and this is why the problem I have with Aintu too. I don't need people who come to the game late, and I don't need people who I need to tell what to do. They are of no use to me. You know what I mean? In what's heading forward. If I'm looking for representation, like, I expect them, to be honest with you, I expect them to blow me out of water. I want to hear their ideas and think, fuck, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah,
do you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what should be happening.
Yeah, exactly. And like you're saying there, like Sinn Féin have moved the goalpost so many times now. Now they're calling themselves Euro-critical. They're not Euro-skeptic anymore. They're Euro-critical, which just means that they're just going to talk smack. And you're like, well, you don't need someone to talk smack. You need someone in there to be going, right, you need to get out of this, or we need to change this radically. Not like I'm going to go in and have a moan about it. And I think that's Sinn Féin. Like, I look at Sinn Féin now, right? And I know, for example, if I know a number of die-hard supporters, is what I'll say. And like, they treat it like a cult, like a football club. And I mean, people might think I'm just having a whack at Sinn Féin here, but I mean, like, I don't know very many other people that support the other parties, is what I'm saying. So I'll give you a clue into types of areas I'm from and the people that I know. You've got a class of people there that would have seen them as like, these people are, the top of the pops. They are tough guys. You knew the Yao Chinner in the area used to be a tough guy with a beard belly, a bit of a beard or whatever like that. And you're going, he was a cool dude. He was a bit of a rogue now. You liked him. Allegedly, speculatively, of course, we're saying about this here. And now you have soft boys like Dahi Dool, and you have guys like Ono Brun that doesn't know what a woman is, and he's hanging around with Lynn Boyle, and and then you've got like that movement, that feminist movement then that's within it. Like, you've got the Mary Lou's, you've got the Michelle O'Neills, and you've got the various. I mean, there was a woman that put up a poster there, and she was saying that the poster was written on or something like that. And I joke you not, guys, I actually thought it was Beetlejuice running for election. This was some woman, and I was like, mother of God, this is the type of people that likes of Sinn Féin are putting forward. Goofballs of the highest order. And you're looking and you're going, this isn't what it was. So when I talk to people that were diehard supporters beforehand, they're already kind of like letting you in to be like, not really sure about this here. And then like I hit them with did you know that Mary Lou's brother thinks she's now a woman? And they're like, what? And these are things that I'm not familiar with, you know what I mean? It's like the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when the anvil comes down on top of him. Like, what I'm saying is the anvil here. And they're just looking at you and they're in pure disbelief because they can't believe that that's where the party's gone. And then, like you mentioned, Aintu. Like, Aintu are just Sinn Féin light, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of other people feel the same too. Like, they've got foreign people running in their party. Will we say allegedly, speculatively on that one? I don't even know if you have to even say allegedly on that one. But there's people there that are not from Ireland that are running in the party, and you're looking at it going, like, this is just more the same. And you've got Sinn Féin running around doors along. I mean, I'll gather your thoughts on it in a moment, but when you've got Sinn Féin running around doors with people that are not from this country, that have only arrived into the country, and then you've got Fianna Fáil there. I don't know whether you've seen the video, but it was of Micheál Martin with your man, is it Keo or something, Benicio, the fella that they're hailing about the Parnell Street incident. They won't talk about Warden Donoghue or all the Irish guy that was there, but they'll hail this Brazilian fella, which I thought was strange from the outset. But now it's after rearing its head as to what it is. A guy that's Brazilian is now running an election here in Ireland. You couldn't make this up, guys. And he got something like 300,000 in a GoFundMe and went off back to Brazil, and now he's back. But is he not a key witness in an incident, a very violent incident there in the middle of town? Like, how was he able to leave the country and then come back? But then it makes more sense then when you see he's running in an election. And you see Micheál Martin, and I was like, if I was you guys, I wouldn't have recorded this and put this out. But Micheál Martin approaches him and says to him, KO, is that your name? And your man goes, yeah. and it was the most awkward thing I've ever seen. And it really kind of showed me what this party system is about right now in terms of the legacy parties. You've got a former jockey, is it, that's running as well too for one of the parties,
Yeah,
Nina,
yeah.
is it? And then you've got your woman Cynthia and Nimordiku. That video I did the other day went fairly viral. 16,000 views now. A person that was an RTE presenter and someone that talked on the Eurovision, like they're now outsourcing it to people that are semi celebrities, if you even want to call that. And I mean, that's when the party's on the rocks there, as far as I'm concerned. When you've got ordinary guys like yourself that's running in the Irish Freedom Party, like that's a very big statement to me, that I'm like, this guy's thinking the same way. He's an ordinary head. He's not someone that's after being brought up through RTE and been schooled on how to talk and what to say and all these sort of things. Like, we're just having a conversation here, no script at all. And then you've got a guy then that's been pushed forward by Fianna Fáil that's only arrived into the place, and Micheál Martin doesn't even know his name.
He's like, but somebody told him, we're getting more like America, and somebody told him, listen, you'll poll well if you go meet with him or something, and like you said, with the semi-celebrities, like I was only talking to someone today, and I was like, we all have people we hope get seats. I said, but I have my pet hates too, and I said, look, if Maria Walsh doesn't get her seat, that'll be halfway to happy for me. Put it that way. There's some people I want to see get in, but there's some people I want to see kicked out too.
Yeah, that's what gets me going even more. So I'm like, if these people lost seats and they were out, like, I keep saying to people, I don't even have to repeat the individuals or anything like that, because I've said it many a time. But like, when you draw up the connections between certain people, like, you know what I mean? I'll say it anyway. Like, you've got Patrick Costello there in the Green Party. He's married to Hazel Chew, right? Hazel Chew is currently out, and she's not going to get back in. The way to cut her off entirely from ever being given a platform again to be talking about Ireland, to talk smack about Ireland, is to remove Patrick Costello from his TDC. So make sure that someone takes his seat off, and that's it. Then she has no claim to be talking about it ever again. So, like, these are the things that, I mean, I seen an article today, right? And it was saying that do you remember the video that came out from Talbot Street years ago, the here, leave her out video? Do you remember that one?
I heard that in the radio today. Me said she's getting. Go on, sorry, finish.
No, go on, because you know where I'm going with this here.
Yeah, what was it? They're giving her honorary mayor of some Sheriff Street or something like that, isn't it, for her community work? But they played that. They played that on the radio again. Oh, I hadn't heard that in a long time. I laughed
really hard at that. I did, and I was just like, do you know what? In one respect, I'm like, fair play to them, because that's hilarity in its total point, and it's to just do that.
Yeah.
But like, at the same time, I'm going, it really goes to show you the system and the desperation that they're facing right now, because you've got a lot of robotic individuals that are in there. I mean, you've Simon Harrison. I mean, how he's ascended to the job that he's ascended to. You've Helen McEntee that's still sitting where she is. You've Drew Harris. They're out now talking about body cameras there today. Another thing I wanted to get your opinion on was, what's your thoughts on the body camera situation? I'd always say people still record.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been told that they're allowed to turn them on and off.
Really?
Which like, seems convenient for nights like Newtown, Mount Kennedy, and the likes. To be honest with you, I think like, look, nobody wants people to be victims of crime, like especially violent crime and that. But I think this is a step towards a totalitarian state. I think, like, I'm not sure I can't see any way really that this benefits people. You know what I mean? It might crack down harder on criminals. It might make it easier to prosecute criminals. That might be fair enough. But the point is, at the same time, you have Gardaí walking around who are just openly recording. You know what I mean? And that's not supposed to be, like, in places like London and New York, you can't move without being on surveillance. Luckily Dublin is not quite there yet. But if you're in the city centre, you can't. Chances are you can't go on a 15-minute walk without being picked up from one camera to the next camera to the next. You could be tracked easily. You know what I mean?
For sure. I
Um,
remember seeing when you're talking. Just sorry if I couldn't across because it's just come across my mind now. It's just in case I forget. But I remember seeing footage from America, and this is like when you see America, it's kind of like the movie Idiocracy, and you're looking at it and you're going, okay, right, because this is something that's for sure going to happen here in Ireland at some stage of the game. But remember seeing body cam footage of a police officer, and he pulled this fella over on like a highway or a motorway, as we'd call them, we would, and he had the guy's reg, he had his license, not that. And your man done a burner. He started running away, right? And he started running over 3 or 4 different roads. And the policeman's running after him with the body cam footage. And I'm like, but you've got all of his information. You have his card. He's going nowhere, really. He's in the middle of nowhere here. But the police officer runs after him, and your man gets a smack of a lorry, right? So he's no longer, he's jam at this stage of the game, right? And then there's people in the comments going, he shouldn't have ran. And I'm like, I get the point, but the body cam footage was to absolve the officer of any wrongdoing. I just like, no.
Yeah, yeah,
So there was people in the comments that were solicitors that were going. They could probably, their family probably have a good reason here for like manslaughter or something. And I was like, Jesus, when you're looking at it like that, like the body cam footage opens itself up now to a lot. Like in one respect, I understand it, I get it. But on the flip side, when you see Helen McEntee making comments like, the Gardaí won't be able to alter it or tamper with it, I'm like, it's like that Bart Simpson meme, what an interesting thing to say. So she says things and I'm like, I wouldn't have said that if I was you there now, because that's a very odd thing to say,
That was like you said, the quiet part out loud, like,
Yeah, and I think these people do an awful lot of the time. I do think sometimes they're that vacuous that they do say the quiet part out loud, whereas you're like, well, why wouldn't it definitely not have said that? Do you know what I mean?
And I think like again, like put it this way, I'm a fan of dash cams, to protect us, like in terms of just for dealing with insurance companies or crazy cyclists, or if I do happen to have an accident or whatever. So you can make arguments kind of with some of this stuff as well in terms of how it's happening, and the motivation. Like you said, I want to unite Ireland. I wouldn't want to unite Ireland under this government. I want people like me to handle it. I don't want them to handle it. And likewise, we could talk about body cams, but when you look at Drew Harris and Helen McGuinty, you just say no, don't give them anything they want. But again, back to the dash cam thing. Most dash cams are kind of recording on like a minute loop, and the idea, if you have an accident or whatever, you stop the thing, you take it out. Like, it doesn't record 24 hours worth of shit. You know what I mean? It records and records over and records over. And, if body cams were a little bit more like that, you might at least have some sort of a sense of security that you weren't just purely being surveilled and it wasn't just massive data gathering. Because the problem is, the minute you introduce body cams, then what follows up everything with these people is a wedge. And the minute you introduce body cams, what they're going to follow up with is facial recognition software, to make the body cams more effective. Now, the facial recognition software is an absolutely impotent software unless you feed it the data. You put everyone's PPS card and everyone's passport pictures and driving license and all into this machine. Now it can recognize people. If you don't give it any data, it doesn't recognize anyone. So the point then becomes that, body cams becomes facial recognition software, becomes data harvesting for the sake of facial recognition software and, crime solving for our own good. We're going to keep data on absolutely everything, So I think it sets a dangerous precedent, and I don't think it's a standalone thing. I think it's a wedge. I think it will lead to more dangerous measures that are, the underbelly of it is totalitarian, and I don't trust the motives of it whatsoever. These are conversations we could have had 10 years ago, and I might have had a different opinion. But with the shower that are in control now, I'm just, Jesus, nearly anything they say, I'm like, no. They want it, no.
It's like you're saying there about the body cams, and I fully agree with you insofar as like anything that these people want, I'm like, oh no, hard no to that one. And the new thing that they're pushing recently is the United Ireland situation, and I'm like, look, listen, like I would love nothing more than to have the 32 counties all together and we be working, and it's Ireland and the UK is fully driven out altogether, right? But you got to look at the realistic situation that's going on there. You've got people in the north, right, that are availing of the fact that they use the sterling, which is at a higher monetary point and a higher financial point than we are at the moment. So they're earning 20% in and around that when they go to anywhere that's using the euro. So there's that aspect of it that a lot of people don't want to hand over. Then you've got the change in demographics that are happening as well in Northern Ireland. Like, you know, I'm talking to people up there all of the time, and they're telling me about that. They're saying how things are changing and how it looks, and it's reflected by looking like Dublin now at this stage of the game. Like, that's not a positive right now, you know. And there's the other side of things with the NHS, and then as I would also say, then with the British, it seems now again, I say it seems is what I'm mentioning here. It seems like there's repercussions when they do things wrong. But when you're here in Ireland, when you get up to no good here, it's, well, sure, look, you know, we won't worry about that. You know, only this week was there someone that was running for an election that was caught there after taking 15 grand and getting 15 grand worth of houseworks done. Again, I'll say allegedly anyway, for taking down an opposition to some sort of housing project that was being done near them, right? Is that person going to face jail time? Like, the party are out there going, we'll investigate that with ourselves. Like, what do you mean you'll investigate that yourselves? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, does that mean now that you're actually actively telling people you're above the law? Is that what? And I mean, I don't have to ask or say too much. I mean, we saw that all with Leo Varadkar when he was under criminal investigation. Like, the DPP just decided, nah, I'm not going to prosecute him for that. Like, they didn't say he was innocent. They just said, no, we're just not going to do it.
Touche.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where we're leading with these things. Like, when you're talking about United Ireland as well, like, I am very wary of these parties, for example, that are in the establishment that are wanting a United Ireland. I'm like, they have something going on. Whereas you guys there in the Irish Freedom Party, I genuinely believe that you guys are there for the betterment of it and to bring everybody together. Whereas you're looking at Sinn Féin, you're like, there's something up there, there's something wrong. Like, when you guys are pushing on it so hard like they are, there's definitely alarm bells that are ringing. Like, there's people that are in the north that are Catholics, and they're reaching out to me and they're like, listen, I'm voting for the DUP. And I'm like, whoa. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yikes. Like, that's something I never thought someone would say. And there's people that are like, no, that's what's happening here, because they're the ones taking a hard line on some of these things. And I'm going, fucking hell. Like, that's a pretty big statement, you know?
And that's because Sinn Féin melted into the Uni Party, essentially. Yeah. Again, like I say, the only differing factor is the fact that they want a United Ireland. But like I said, it's a very good point that there seems to be absolutely no consequence politically here whatsoever. And I mean, even in terms of losing power. These same two parties have been in power for decades upon decades upon decades. And they've never really done a good job, have they? But like even the guy, do you remember? I think it was a Cork councillor or something, who after the Dublin riot said they should be brought out and shot in the head.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
nothing. We heard nothing about that. Not so much as he's been warned, and any future, he'll be dumped off the party. Like, absolutely nothing happened. And the Children's Hospital is an absolute behemoth of a scandal, and nobody will be held accountable for that. Like, even things like the M50, when they said, we're putting in the new lanes and all, and this'll manage our growing demand for the next 10 to 15 years. And the day it opened, there was a fucking car park again. And whatever advisor or whatever fella in a suit who swanned in with his little plans and said this will work, and then he probably swanned off 300 grand in his back pocket, and the M50 is broken. We still don't have a children's hospital. Like I said, there's zero account. Even when you look at the mica crisis, and the government still has not regulated quarries, and they haven't gone after the companies and said, you cost, Like, there was a guy, it was a Priory Hall just up the road from me. There's a guy committed suicide over this kind of thing. Having to move out the mica crisis, like the banks coming after him and having to move out of a home that was no longer livable, but still owing the money,
Yeah.
And the government and everyone else turning a blind eye to it. Nobody helping them. Like, everybody in Ireland pays for their mistakes, except, the journalists and the NGOs and the political class, because the NGOs are the exact same as well. And even like, the Citizens Assembly and all. Now, these aren't paid people, I suppose, but I mean, same thing. They walk in, they give their recommendation, and they waltz off into the sunshine. While children are getting mutilated in Tavistock, or like going missing under the care of Tussler, and all these people swan around in their executive positions and 120 grand a year, and nobody even knows their name. They never get fired for any of it. Like, it's obscene. And the thing is, you could argue that this is the kind of thing that's, it's not a good thing, and I'd never wish for it to happen this way. But you could argue that this is the kind of thing that's fueling all of the waking up in Ireland, because, 20 years ago, people knew. There was a little bit of brown envelope going around. In the days of Haughey and all, politics was largely corrupt. But I think most people thought to themselves, it's mostly under control. They're corrupt. They're lying in their pockets, but things are mostly under control. Things are certainly not under control anymore. People cannot buy a house. People cannot afford. The elderly are choosing between he and he, and nursing homes are being repurposed into asylum centres to deal with the population goals of these maniacs who are running our country. So things are certainly not going well right now, and that's when people start to take notice. 10 years ago, a lot of people were apathetic to politics because, like I said, I think they believed, yeah, they're doing their job, I'll do my job. I book me holidays, I run around with my kids, I've got my own shit going on. I don't need to be watching these people. They're doing their jobs. As it turns out, they aren't, and the more corruption that rolls out and the more insanity, like Drew Harris trying to bring pronouns into the Garda, and then you see the Gardaí bleeding numbers as well, where defence forces are falling apart. Like, literally you can't tell me one thing in Ireland that's still going well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't get a classroom, you can't get a GP, you can't get a dentist appointment, you can't get into A&E, you can't buy a house, the roads are fucking packed, the bus doesn't arrive on time. Like, nothing is working anymore. And that's, we're at the point now where I think it's, even if none of us existed and had been around for the last few years trying to shout from the rooftops, I think even without all of that, right now we would be starting to see a change, because it's just inevitable. It's an extremely natural and warranted reaction to perpetual decay, in the standard of living in our society, like even morally and multicultural, just everything is piling together now. And I think people are just there, like I said, they're starting to pay attention, and in the paying attention, they're now looking for replacements, God willing, at least.
I do think so, and I fully agree with the points that you're making there. Like, I mean, it's very astute points that you're making, and I like them because, you're saying exactly what people are thinking, and that's exactly what's going on. Appointments, you're not able to get classrooms. People are also looking at the shift in demographics within that as well, and they're going, hang on here for a sec, You're also seeing, as you said, the dentist appointments, the fact that people had very serious appointments like cancer appointments cancelled over the sniffles, and then they're looking at people then waltzing into the place that are getting ahead of them. As I've said before, I know people that are waiting on an appointment and are a year out. The Children's Hospital, as you said there was an article released there today, I think it was, and they said that that's pushed out to 2025. They're like, the cost of that's nearly approaching 2 billion at this stage of the game, and you're like, well, who is responsible for that? The Micah address thing that you just said there, or Mika address there, I know people criticise that, like, you don't know how to say it, and I'm like, listen, I don't live there, so I'm not really sure how you say it. Okay? And if you're in that region, you say words differently to me anyway. But like you said there, you've got someone that it wasn't their fault that they bought the house and that happened to it. Like, they were left with that, and there's no help being given to those people whatsoever. And yet then you see then the likes of, what we say, like log cabins that are being delivered down to places around the country, and people are living in them that are not from this country. It's just absurd levels of corruption. Like you said, it's become too in your face to not notice it. Like you were saying, I think it was a great analogy that you said there, like the brown envelopes that used to go around. People knew about it. They had a sniff of it. They knew people were in and around different circles that they shouldn't have been in. And now it's just so blatant. It's so out in front of everyone's faces now. Like, I'm at the point in time where, I said the WWE thing earlier on, but I think we're at the point in time now where they're going to very, very soon try and tell you that the likes of the media and the NGOs and all that, it's all been a big work. That sort of way. I think they're all going to come clean at some stage and go, and then they're going to go, and what he's going to do about it. It's like the whole thing over the last couple of years when it came to the sniffles. They're releasing data and they're releasing stories on that very slowly, but at the same time, they're saying to you, like, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much going on. I only talked about this with me outfit not too long ago, and I went, there's that much going on that if that scandal about what's gone on with the sniffles over the last few years had been the singular point that people would have looked at, they would have been there would have been very serious consequences, I do think, for these people. But the fact that you've been bombarded with, look what's going on in Ukraine, look what's going on in Palestine, look what's going on here on our own borders, look what this person is doing, look what that person's doing. It's just so much, and it's overwhelming, and it's too much as such. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that we're tapped into things, and we talk about various different things all the time. I think that's very important, but I think the place has become so much bigger because of all of the stuff that they have going on, all of the spinning plates, that it's difficult to go, well, you need to be nailed for that, but hang on, you need to be nailed for that too. And then you're looking at it and you're like, the majority of the cabinet need to go if that's the case. You know what I mean? And that's all right by me. Like, if you want to jail them for doing what they did and taking part in what they did, I'm fully on board there with that, you know. Before we jump out there, Diarmaid, I have two things that I'd like to do here. So I just want to talk a little bit briefly about the statement that was published there in the joint statement that was published by the Irish Freedom Party, Ireland Force, the National Party, and the Irish people. Can you talk to people about what that joint statement was about and what's going on when I'm talking about that?
Yeah, so about, now this is just kind of the preface to it. About maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I was forwarding an email, and it was from RTE, basically outlining the official criteria for the European election debate campaigns. Right, there was 3 obviously for each constituency, and then they said there'd be later stuff on radio and that kind of thing. Right. Within that email, they laid out a criteria that let me know after I read it that I wasn't going to be invited. It began with, if you were, I think in Dublin, I think there's 23 or 24 candidates, right? They were talking about bringing on a panel of 8, which obviously is only a third of the field, right? And then they led by saying that you will be invited if you are A, an incumbent. So that's 4 seats gone straight away of the 8, right? Because, you know, the 4 incumbents. B, if you had run in the last election and hit the quota of 2% or something like that. C, if you were already a TD or a councillor. And then I think D, any remaining seats would go to the party who had the most TDs or councillors, even if you weren't one. So, you know, we were E, none of the above, not getting invited on whatsoever. And this has been done to basically every nationalist candidate. And in my opinion, you know, it's the typical speaking out both sides of their mouth when it comes to the left, you know, and they said, oh, we have these fairness protocols, and it's a guideline for who gets airtime and that. And, you know, the fairness protocols just happen to dictate that I don't get a look in, and Derek Blythe doesn't get a look in, Philip, Patrick Quinlan, Herman Kelly, Michael Leahy, you know, none of us got a look in, really. This is control of the narrative. You know, they brought on softball people who weren't really capable of attacking the questions and the narrative, in my opinion. You know, if you bring on people like Niall Boylan and Peter Casey, I don't think, not only are they a watered down version of what we stand for, I don't think they have the experience to debate the subject and to, you know, you could nearly say they have too much good faith. You know, if I'm going to debate immigration with these people, I understand that, you know, I'm not dealing with honest people. I'm not dealing with genuine people. If I make a good point, they're not going to concede to it. They're just going to call me a racist, you know? So you have to understand at that point then it's a whole nother ballgame. But so to the joint party statement, basically, rather than just lie down and take it, it has to be known that, you know, there are 4 officially registered legitimate political organizations in the country that were entirely overlooked. Now, you know, we weren't the only people who were overlooked, but the problem is this. Everyone else who was brought on that debate essentially represents the same view. We are the outsiders here, right? And the truth is there is a massive percentage of people in Ireland who do not have political representation. You know, Sinn Féin don't represent them, and the rest of the left don't represent them. We will be their representation. We are their only voice politically, although we do not have anyone elected yet. That is simply the truth of it. So I believe in the interest, you know, they constantly talk about protecting democracy, and in the interest of a fair debate and informing the public, especially with RTE, which is known as, you know, a public services broadcaster, which is paid for by taxpayer money. You know, it's not meant to be a propaganda machine. It's not meant to be the private whims of Dennis O'Brien and his media outlets, you know. So I believe that the parties basically said, well, look, like it needs to be made clear that, like, it is you who are trampling on democracy. It is you who are deliberately targeting people to be excluded. And, if we think we're not going to kick and scream about this and maybe pursue legal action, then you'd be wrong. Because it's all far too important now. These elections are far too important for everyone to think that the 8 people they saw on RTE or Virgin Media or wherever are the only people running the elections. In fact, those 8 people, none of them represent a change whatsoever. And there are a lot of people in this country who are hungry for a change. So this is not just about our parties being deprived a debating spot. It's about the Irish people being deprived the knowledge of the fact that there is an opposition. Because again, they just want everyone to believe that we don't exist. And your option, if you want an opposition, sure, vote for Sinn Féin. Sure, aren't they the opposition? Vote for that nice, safe opposition there. So, I believe it was meticulously orchestrated. I believe, it's absolute projection and gaslighting to call it fairness protocols and all. And I believe the parties have to do whatever they can. It's too late now. We're not going to be brought on anywhere. But it's all about allowing them to set a precedence. And the point is, if we said nothing, then come the general elections, they might just screw us over too. Now, nothing may come of this, but again, at least it's about raising awareness to the people that, listen, this is how corrupt, not only are your government a bunch of lunatics, but RTE are completely in on it. The mainstream media are completely in it. People need to know this, and when they make that clear, we need to highlight that, and I think it's great that not one party did it alone. I think it's great that the parties came together and they said, look, listen, we are all being shafted here, and we're all being shafted for the same reason, because we want to go against the agenda and we want to actually put Ireland on the right course. And it's not because he's Herman Kelly or he's Derek Bly that they were shafted. We were all shafted for the same reason. And that cannot be allowed to pass, basically, So I don't know where this goes from here. Legal matters was never really my strong point at all. I'm not sure what kind of legal action we could take from this, especially at the minute when that's just something I don't have time to delve into. But I think it's very positive to see the parties acting in unison, and it kind of mirrors the last few protests we had, where all of the parties got to have a speaker and get up and speak too. I think it's good. We need to offer a unified front, because the left offers a unified front. Every other party in the Dáil calls us far right and racist. They all recognise us as the enemy, and if we're splintered going up against the unified machine that has the mainstream media and NGOs and the backing of everything else, we just don't have a hope. So, when we get screwed over like this, we have to try come together and like I said, create a united front and let them know, look, we're not going to take this line down. We don't know what's going to happen or where it'll go, but it's not going to go quietly anyway.
I love to hear that, and do you know what? I think, guys, if anyone gets the chance at this point of the stream, just rewind this and listen to what Diarmaid just said there. He's so right. I don't actually have anything much to add to that, because you're absolutely on the money when it comes to these things. A united front is absolutely needed. It's something I've been calling for a very long time. There is tribalism for sure, and that'll emerge eventually as well. Anyway, all of it does. But the thing is, right now at this moment in time, what you are actually seeing, in my humble opinion, and this is just my opinion, is election interference, that they're telling you, hey, these are the only 8 candidates that we got here. Yeah, but they're not showing you the other 4 parties that are gaining a massive support, that have been walking with banners, that have been at the front, as far as I'm concerned, of speeches, and indeed getting involved with getting these massive protests going. That's a huge thing to omit, and they're purposefully omitting that as well, which is a huge scandal in my humble opinion. Again, and I know I say that regularly, but that's just my view. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing here on this channel, when I'm talking to people here and bringing people on, because I want to give people a voice. There might be people here tonight that have not heard of the Irish Freedom Party before, or they might look at this channel because they're like, well, I don't trust the mainstream anymore, but I'll have a look at this channel. And that's why I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and everybody else that's been a guest on here, because I feel that this is helping, and the fact that, I think that people have their preferences, not that, but ultimately, as I've said before, I think, if you have an Irish Freedom Party candidate in your area and it's them versus all of the rest, in terms of Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, Greens. That's who I'm selecting. I'm going for that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Third and fourth, I'm selecting that person there, and I think the strategy that's going to be unfolding, and I hope it does, is that you guys all sit down together and say to each other, right, what area are you going for there? Right, that's what I'm doing. I'm over here in this specific part. Grand, I won't go there now myself either. I'll go over here and play the game that these people have been playing for a very long time. Like Sinn Féin moved down and Brown around, I think 3 or 4 different constituencies before he got elected. That's a very important point, I think, and that's something that needs to be looked at. That people go, okay, now again, it might not be 3 or 4, it might be 2 or 3, but he was definitely moved around constituencies that they eventually got him in there because that's someone that they wanted, and that's the point that I'm making. That if someone's running an East Wall, don't go running an East Wall as well. Do you know what I mean? Let that person that who's doing well there go run there, or Finglas, or whether it be Blanchardstown, or whether it be, I don't know, Phibsborough, or whatever it might be, because all these areas that are popping up, Tala, you've got Clondalkin, Coolock, whatever it might be. I think that, and I'm not talking about Dublin here, by the way, because then someone will be in the chat and they're going, you're not talking about any other county. I'm with you. I'm with you. We'll get there eventually. And what I'm saying is, you go to Meath and Clare and Tip and all these places, and Leitrim and Limerick, and all these places that are hungry for real change. And I think that's, I know we said I didn't have much to add to it, but I actually did. So, no, I think what you're saying there is absolutely spot on the money. And I really, really do think that's a point that I would hope people will rewind and listen to what Diarmaid said there, because I think the time is now. It's a hugely important election that's upcoming, and also the ones that are coming after that are going to be seriously interesting and important too. Before we end this, I'm going to just look at a couple of chat messages that I started throughout the chat that we had here, because there's been people that have been talking in it now, and I want to give people their due and let them know, hey, I'm keeping an eye on it there. Am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right, because I could just see the things that are freezing there now. I'm all good. I'm good. I can see it now. It's all back. So we've got Air Force there that says Polly, a prison officer that moves them from courts to jail, prison to prison, etc., told me there's been an explosion of the amount of invaders he's driving around. So that's not good. I would be curious to see what the demographics of the prisons would be now at this moment. But also, what I want to make people aware of this too, the fact that they've been handing out Irish passports, it enables the government now to tell you that the person that committed this crime was Irish. Do you know what I mean? So, passports are another thing that we need to take a very serious look at, in my view. But Tropical Jungle Ireland says one of Ireland's biggest weaknesses is that the whole nation doesn't speak its national language. I've been banging on that drum for a very long time. As an English-speaking country, it was open to this plantation, banging on that drum 100%. But the new tactic from the left, by the way, and they've decided to, I don't know whether you've seen this or anything like that, but I've seen a former, shall we say, a woman that used to be on something that was only, and you would say that they would have a lot of fans, if catch me drift here. But a woman that used to sell her pictures of her rasher for a fiver online, allegedly, Spectre, you were saying that one. Don't think you need to do that. But she's out there now changing her name to an Irish version of her name and telling you that anyone that's saying Ireland is full and the likes are racist and all that. And she's going down this route of, well, you don't speak Irish and you aren't Gaelgars. And I'm like, well, that's a very interesting point that you're starting to go down. Now, she was on Virgin Media not too long ago talking about how she injected her arse with things that made her very ill. So I don't know if she's the type of person you should be listening to whatsoever. But anyway, we shall move on.
Indeed, yeah.
What you're starting to see is that narrative starting to emerge now, where they're like, oh, TG Carr were down there and these guys weren't able to speak Irish. That's a whole another topic for another day. But 800 plus years of British oppression, the penal laws, people seem to forget about these things, and then people then were just not, there wasn't enough education for them for the Irish language, and I mean the British beat it out of us. But I do think that's an astute point to be making there. Tropical Jungle, it's something I've been banging on the drum for a very long time. We wouldn't have half the issues that we have if this was an Irish speaking country. Saladin is in here, the great Saladin. So Saladin's been doing great stuff on YouTube, tens of thousands of views, which is good to see there with the videos being shared. And he says, or she, I don't know, you might identify as a woman, I don't know, Saladin, who knows. He'd be in the chat now going, I'm definitely a man. But he says that attack in Germany today is going to start something, stay alert. So if anybody's just here and hasn't heard about it, but there was an attack in Germany today. Apparently there was some sort of rally that was put forward. I'm not sure. There was unconfirmed report. Someone might say it in the chat, but I don't know whether the AFD in Germany organised that. And a guy went around attacking people with a, shall we say, a Wesley Snipes blade, And there was a picture that came out, and a lot of people said that when they seen the video. But the guy that was attacking people was tackled by one or two other individuals, and the police actually tackled the native people that were attacking the attacker.
Yeah, I've seen the video. Yeah, it's insane. And then he pays the price for turning his back.
But this is it. The policeman who's subduing the native actually gets. Now, I'm not going to go into graphic detail here or anything like that, but he gets fairly, whacked, I shall say, in the video, and people are all quoting it, and they're showing that picture, and they're like, if anything sums up 2024, it's actually this image. Don't worry about the lunatic behind you with the knife. Worry about the person there that's the native that's trying to stop what's going on. Like it's peak 2024. But attack in Germany is pretty serious stuff there now, and these type of things are going to become, and I've said it before, and it's a shameful thing to have to even admit, but these things are going to become normalized by the media. They've tried to do these things. It's going to be normalized by the government. Like, it's crazy to think that there's people reaching out to me and they say that they don't feel safe in the areas that they're walking in. They won't go out after a certain time, and this is really harrowing stuff in a country. I'm not sure who said it. I think it might have been Rowan Croft himself, who said, like, the days of being able to walk around with your earphones in, not giving a care in the world in this country are over. And that's a very sad situation,
Yeah, but it is funny. Like, it's a very good observation, because I remember like I was training a few different martial arts, and in the club there was doormen and all. Remember one of the times I came in, it was coming in the evening, and it was dark out. Like, and I came in with the earphones, and I had my hood up and my earphones on, and he's like, "Are you fucking mad walking around like that?" What do you mean? He says. He's like, you may as well have blinkers on. You're like a horse. He said, half your peripheral is gone and you have music in your ears. He said, you're walking around town. And like, this must have been nearly 20 years ago. At the time I was like, you're mad. Like, there's nothing, because nothing ever happened, for the whole time. But like I said, I wouldn't do it now. Times are changing and I wouldn't do that now,
Times are massively changing. I've heard like many stories of like the new gangs that are formed in these places now, like stripping people and stuff like that, like because they like their runners and their bottoms and that. And you're like, wow. And these things are not even getting a mention on the news. Like it's all filtered as well, which is the thing, We keep going back to the chat there though. Steve Dixon says class talker, so I'm sure that's in reference to you, Diarmaid, not me. The chat like to talk an awful lot of shit to me, and that's fine. I like it. I love it. No, it's honestly, all jokes aside, it's a great chat there. They're very supportive. They are. I like to make jokes of my own at my own expense at times. B, Ninja Knight, you're a real life Brian Dobson. Thank you. That's not a compliment, B, is what I'm going to say. I'm not a very rotund, posh man, so I would like to just point that out. Sotonar, I hope I'm pronouncing that right there, says, we are controlled by a disgusting class of totalitarian communists who are themselves spiteful, dysgenic mutants that wants to destroy all of our people simply due to their own emotional inadequacies. Very well put. I like that.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Occidental Advocate says, lol, these career women never have kids, then regret it bitterly by the time they reach 50. I know many women like that. Did you see the picture? I don't know whether you did, of Vivica A. Fox. Have you ever heard of her?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd pick her out of a lineup, but I know the name, yeah.
Well, 20 years ago, a very attractive woman, okay? Now, people that like to call me a racist will be absolutely dumbfounded at the fact that I've said that a black woman is attractive there, But this woman, very attractive 20 years ago, she's now 60-odd now, and she's hit the wall, okay? And now she's out there going, I need a boyfriend that needs to step up. And you're like, listen, love, you haven't got much long left on this earth. Do you know what I mean? You got 20 years of it good.
It's like 60, yeah. I thought 40 was late. You wait till 60.
It's 60s pushing it, but this woman's out there now, and she's been running all the feminist game for the years, and I'm like, they ain't picking up the guys that you're thinking you're going to pick up. Anyway, that's probably a talk for another day. Anyway, Sylvia Wilson's in here. She says, make it too expensive to have children, then import baby factors on the dole. Genius. Yeah, that's absolutely what's happened here. Just bear in mind that if women stay at home to rear children, they would need social housing. I don't agree with that comment, and actually, funny enough, there's a comment down below that perfectly encapsulates what I would respond to anyway, and it's actually from a woman, Ellie Green. It says, one man's wages should be enough for a couple to buy a house and live there on... sorry, excuse me, I've read that incorrectly. One man's wages should be enough for a couple to buy a house with and live on and there should be enough council houses for Irish people the way it used to be. And that's a fantastic comment there, Ellie. And that's a perfect response there, because that's exactly what I would have said.
Yeah.
Like everybody had grandparents, that there was one grandparent working, and in their times, and you had a husband and wife, and he was out to go off out working, and she was out to be at home around the kids. Like everyone had that. Now that's not an option. Now you've got people that are like, when I'm too busy, I have to feed me Tamagotchi at 4 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like you've got people out there that are doing that. You know what I mean? So like, no, all jokes aside,
I was just going to say, or the house costs €500,000.
Well, I mean, like they've got a bungalow not too long ago. They had the media like to run with this one as well, that they're helping out the property situation, and in my opinion, helping out the estate agents as well. They had an article out not too long ago, and it was a bungalow in Dean's Grange over on the south side, and they're like, "Look at this quaint bungalow for 500,000." I'm like, "That's $500,000 for a bungalow. You wouldn't swing a cat."
Yeah,
some people saying I'm offensive towards cats, but listen, this is the thing. The media now that are in sync with these people. We've got County Gaines that's in here. County Gaines has invited me on his channel. He's got a big channel. He's a bodybuilding character, shall I say? Is that the right way to say these things? I don't know. But anyway, he says they like Steven Seagal above the law in the government. Aha. Frank Barron says Abdul Talukdar is still running for Fianna Fáil. So that's the guy you were talking about earlier on about protesters. We've also got Ruckus is in here as well too. Says hello. We've Fergus Power that says Ninja Knight, there's only one thing going really well, and that's the nationalist movement. Erga Bra based Fergus Power there, absolute legend. Stephen O.T. says Euro candidate suck them. Rory Hearn today said the immigrants, asylum seekers will help us build houses, with question marks. What do you think about that?
Well, I have some information on that. I believe it's Neil Richmond who hands out the work permits, and he tried to. I pushed for this for a while. They started saying immigrants help us build our houses, and I was like, where's the proof of this? How many immigrant builders are there? Yeah, they went quiet for a while. Neil Richmond came out then and he started boasting. He said, we gave over 290 carpenters work permits last year, dozens of builders and dozens of brickies and dozens of plasterers and all. And in that year, 100,000 people came here. So I said, so 100,000 people came here, and less than 1% of that were adding to supply. I said, and everything else, it was 99% demand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work. Like, if you bring 100,000 people here and only 1,000 of them are building houses, that, you know what I mean? That's a burden. It's not going to look after itself. And like I said, that was a 1 year. It's a snapshot. But the fact of the matter was that, like I said, 1% of the people coming here contribute to supply, and 99% are raw demand. And that is Neil Richmond's figure. So I laugh at that, you know.
It's also on the health system as well, Diarmaid. Like, you get the less favourite one is, but like, if you hadn't got foreign doctors, our hospitals wouldn't be running. And you're like, okay, we'll break that down for a second. Okay, if we had all of our Irish doctors here, then first of all, people wouldn't have a translation issue. They would be able to understand things. There wouldn't be any sort of issue with that. If there was any negligence, and wasn't it the Irish Medical Council there? I think it's the Fitness to Practice report there from, was it 2008, I think, to 2023 there, said over 85% of the people investigated were foreign. So like, that says an awful lot to me to begin with. Then you have to, like you said, the raw demand. That's a very, very good point, because for every doctor, say for example, that you import from, we'll just say Spain or something like that, like you've got 100,000, like, again, this is the figures that these people want to be bringing in, other foreigners that are coming in, as well as our own people. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like, you're looking at that and going, well, that one Spanish doctor doesn't offset the fact that you want to bring 100,000 heads into the country here in a year. You know what I mean? Like, and these are the things that these people like to say. They want to win you over with a figure, but hide the rest of the figure and say, well, hang on, don't look at that one over there. So like, this is what we're contending with. We're contending with those things. And the same thing with house prices. Like, we're joking about it and we're having a laugh like that, but house prices are directly linked to immigration also. Because if you're a couple that's looking for a house there, you're competing against other people, and auctioneers and estate agents love an open market. And do you know who else loves an open market? The government, because they get stamp duty then on the houses then when they get
and the banks.
Yes, you know, with their interest rates. So everybody in that echelon there is winning, you know, and you're losing constantly.
Except us, yeah.
Except us, exactly. You know, I fully agree with you there. We're on the same page here, Diarmaid. It's great to see.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got Eamon Barrett that's in here, says good luck in the election to Diarmaid Conaráin. Okay, so thanks very much, Eamon, for that one.
Much appreciate.
And a lot of the chat are viewing the same as well. We've got a lot of viewers in here tonight now. We've over 200, which I really appreciate. And there's some people in here. A lot of people are writing in saying that they really enjoyed hearing you talking here, Diarmaid. We've got Armchair Limerick Nationalist that says not letting nationalist candidates have their voice in the national broadcaster is a disgrace. I hope you get in, Diarmaid. Thank you, Ninja Knight, and he says as well. So very much appreciated there, Armchair Limerick Nationalist. If I missed that in the chat there, will someone let me know? A lot of people saying thanks as well in the chat about what's going on here. And yeah, I think we're up to date now when it comes to the chat. So thanks to the chat here tonight, and thanks to the mods that are in there as well. It's hugely appreciate what you guys do. Is there anything that you want to say or anything like that before we jump off there? Because I know I've kept you nearly 2 hours, and you're a busy man when it comes to the canvassing and the leaflets and that.
No, it's all good, man. I just finished with, look, you know, like we said ourselves, you know, like we have to unify. And I mean, obviously, these elections are unique in the sense that, you know, each of the parties has someone running in the European elections. So nobody is without a candidate in their zone. But, you know, when it comes like down to the council or the general elections, you know, like if you're the NP or your IFP or your Ireland First, like, but you don't have one of your candidates in your area, but you have an independent or one of the other nationalist candidates, look, we have to support each other and vote for each other wherever we can. You know, so just I'd say, you know, I'd say that nationalists shouldn't be too tied to party loyalty. We should be tied to the idea, you know.
First thing I want to ask you is, and then the second one is, the first thing I want you to plug your social media accounts. So where can people find you on social media?
Oh yeah, cheers, man. I'm on Twitter. It's at Diarmaid O'Con. On Twitter, and I have a website where I have a few articles and that up there as well. That's called thehumanspiritpublishing.com, and it's just like I wrote articles on stuff like hate speech back in 2019 and the right to housing and transgenderism, a few different things like that.
Fantastic. And then if anybody wants to get in touch then for canvassing, who do they reach out to? Do you know?
You can reach out to everything gets forwarded to me at info@irishfreedom.ie, or you can go to contact at the Human Spirit Publishing, and that comes straight to me too. So you can find contact details at the website, or even a lot of people just DM me on Twitter too. Now I can be a bit swamped, and sometimes I'm slow getting back to DMs, but I do get back to the majority of them. It just might take a day or two, you know.
I'll attest to that there as well too, because like I know you're a busy man as well. We're coming up to the election. Like, I mean, this is the thing, guys. Like, if you can go out and help these guys, now Philip said it on a stream not too long as well. Like, if you can go out and help and do the canvassing like that, it gives these guys a big hand. And it's super appreciated. If you share their stuff on social media, it's super appreciated. If you share it with the people that you know as well on social media, it's super appreciated. Like if you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, post what these guys are doing and saying, and even screenshot them and show them to people, because that wakes people up and lets them know that there's an alternative option here, because that's the way that we can at least try to circumvent this juggernaut that we're facing off against. I mean, we're doing this here with memes, and we're doing it with very small, so in terms of financial support here, like it's very small in comparison to what this behemoth of a I mean, like people will say it's a deep state are competing with, you know what I mean? Like you said, you've got big money men that are up there now that are running the show, that have been doing that for a very long time. So if you can help out, that will be super appreciated any way you can do with all of the parties that are involved here, the ones that we're talking about earlier on. Is there any last thing that you want to say, Diarmaid? Do you want to remind people where you're running again? And that would be probably a good place to end, I suppose.
Yeah, cheers, man. Yeah, so once again, I'm the Irish Freedom Party candidate for the EU elections in the Dublin constituency. So give me a number one there, and I'll go over there and cause a bit of trouble.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, and he's, by the way, if you're not sure who Diarmaid is or anything like that, he's the guy that looks like Guy Ritchie. That's what you do. Yeah, have you gotten that before, Diarmaid? No,
no, I don't think so. No, but I'll take it. It could be worse. Could have been worse. You could, you know. Yeah, could have told me I look like your man from the Goonies. Hey, you guys.
There's enough of them on the left. Would you go out with that? Would you?
Yeah, that's true. They don't tend to be nationalists.
No, not at all. Listen, guys, I really appreciate Diarmaid for coming on as well, too, and the love that's been shown to you there in the chat tonight, Diarmaid, is great. And I hope that everyone's following him on social media. And again, like I said, give these guys your preferences, and I mean this, fellas and ladies, bombard your family members and friends with voting for these guys. You need to. This is the push that you need to do. Don't just sit idly by and then let these people squeak back in the door. Get these guys in and let's see what they do. And again, if you're unsure or anything like that, what else can you do but give these fellas a chance and ladies a chance, because they absolutely deserve it. And it's been a 2-hour conversation that we've had here, and I really appreciate that. So again, Diarmaid, thanks very much for coming on, and we'll chat again soon. All right.
Yeah, no, much appreciated for having me on, man. Thanks very much, and cheers for all the positive comments in the chat from people as well.
Not at all. Okay, right, guys, we're going to end it there. I have a guest coming on Thursday. Hopefully, all going right there. And if there's anyone else that's going to pop on in the meantime or anything like that, I'll let you know on social media, or you might just see a stream pop up here whenever suits. But Thursday, we're looking at Irish time, 8 p.m. If you're around, I know it's a switch from the Friday, but 8 p.m. on Thursday seems to be the time, because the other person has a lot of other commitments. And again, there is an election on Friday. So we will remind people that as well. That's why we're not doing it on Friday. We're doing it on Thursday instead. So, okay, we'll see you on Thursday then, guys. Good luck.
All right. Cheers, man. Bye-bye.